What would you say is the most valuable asset in a democratic society? Is it perhaps the power to vote? Certainly, democracy is not just about the act of casting a ballot. It's about the power it represents. The power to shape our society, to choose those who will represent us, and to voice our concerns, hopes, and dreams. It's about the freedom to express our will and to have it respected. But for this process to work, for democracy to truly flourish, it requires us to be informed, to be aware of the issues at hand, and to understand the potential impact of our choices. In a democratic society, every vote is a voice. It's the sound of a citizen expressing their opinion, endorsing a vision, or rejecting a status quo. It's a statement that says, "I am here, I matter, and this is what I believe in." It's a testament to the power of collective decision-making, where each voice, each vote, contributes to the larger conversation, shaping the path our society takes. The right to vote, therefore, is not merely about choosing between candidates or parties. It's about participating in the democratic process, about making informed decisions that can shape our collective future. It's about understanding the issues, the policies, and the implications. It's about knowing the facts, recognizing the challenges, and envisaging the possibilities. And yet, the right to vote is not just a privilege, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to ourselves, to our community, and to the generations that will follow. It's a responsibility to ensure that our decisions are based on facts, on truth, not on rumors or falsehoods. It's a responsibility to ensure that our democratic processes remain fair, transparent, and accountable. But what happens when this process gets compromised? When disinformation begins to influence our choices? In the following scenes, we will delve into the world of electoral disinformation, its impact on democratic processes, and what we can do to safeguard our democracy. So, stay tuned as we explore this critical issue that affects us all. Imagine a scenario where false information is deliberately spread to manipulate voters. Sounds like a plot for a dystopian novel, right? But it's more real than you think. Welcome to the world of electoral disinformation. This term refers to the intentional spread of false or misleading information with the specific aim to influence political outcomes, particularly elections. It's not just about the dissemination of false news, but also about creating and amplifying narratives that sow discord, instigate fear or anger, and ultimately sway public opinion. Electoral disinformation can take many forms. It can be a misleading headline, a doctored photo, a fabricated quote, or even a deepfake video. But the common thread is the intent to deceive. It's a subtle and insidious form of manipulation that plays on our emotions, biases, and beliefs. So how does this pose a threat to democratic processes? Well, democracy is based on informed citizenry making choices about who should lead and what policies should be implemented. When false information muddies the waters, it corrupts this process. It can erode trust in institutions, fan the flames of polarization, and even incite violence. In extreme cases, it can destabilize societies and undermine the very fabric of democracy. The digital age has made it easier than ever to spread disinformation. With the click of a button, false narratives can reach millions of people across the globe. The speed and scale of this spread make it challenging to counteract. And while tech giants have stepped up efforts to combat disinformation, the issue persists. But it's not just about the tech companies. Governments, civil society, and every single one of us have a role to play in countering disinformation. It's about fostering media literacy, promoting critical thinking, and holding those who spread false information accountable. Such scenarios aren't just hypothetical. They've happened. Let's delve into some real-life case studies. Consider the influence of social media platforms. They have the power to sway public opinion, for better or worse. Let's delve into a case study that illustrates this power. A story where social media was manipulated as a platform for spreading electoral disinformation. Picture this, a peaceful nation preparing for a critical democratic process, an election. As the date drew closer, an undercurrent of disinformation began to seep into the digital landscape. False narratives, doctored images, and sensationalized stories were disseminated across major social media platforms. The intention? To manipulate the public's perception of the candidates and influence their voting decisions. The disinformation campaign was subtle and insidious. It was designed to exploit existing divisions within the society, stoke fear, and create an atmosphere of uncertainty and mistrust. And it worked. The effect on the election was significant. The candidate targeted by the disinformation campaign saw a sharp decline in public support, leading to a surprising defeat. The aftermath was marked by confusion and a feeling of betrayal among the public. It became clear that the democratic process had been compromised, not by any overt act of aggression, but by a stealthy campaign of disinformation carried out on social media. This shows just how potent a weapon disinformation can be if used maliciously. The power of social media, if wielded irresponsibly, can undermine the very pillars of democracy. Now, let's take a look at the role of traditional media in spreading electoral disinformation. Our case study takes us back to the late 20th century, when traditional media platforms such as newspapers and television stations held immense power over public perception. These platforms were not immune to the spread of disinformation. In fact, they became conduits for it, especially during election seasons. Consider the infamous case of a renowned newspaper which published false allegations about a candidate just days before the election. The sensational headlines and skewed narratives spread like wildfire, influencing public opinion and swaying votes. The candidate lost, and only after the election did the truth come to light. Similarly, a prominent television network once aired a misleading report about a political party's supposed scandal. The report was based on unverified sources and lacked evidence, yet it was broadcasted widely. The party's reputation suffered a significant blow, affecting their performance in the polls. These instances highlight the profound impact traditional media can have on electoral processes. They show how a single report or article, if filled with disinformation, can manipulate public sentiment and alter the course of an election. In the face of such power, we must ask, how can we ensure the integrity of our democratic processes? How can we prevent the spread of electoral disinformation? These cases demonstrate the destructive power of disinformation, but how can we safeguard our democratic processes? With the threats becoming more apparent, protecting our democratic processes becomes crucial. But how can we do this? Well, safeguarding democracy is not an isolated task. It's a collective responsibility that falls on the shoulders of individuals, tech companies, and government bodies. Let's take a moment to discuss the roles each of us play. Individuals, that's you and me, we hold immense power. With the digital world at our fingertips, we can become active participants in the fight against disinformation. It starts with media literacy. We need to understand the difference between information and disinformation, between real news and fake news. We need to be critical consumers, questioning the source, the intent, and the accuracy of what we read, watch, or listen to. We need to fact-check before we share information. Every time we share verified information, we contribute to the health of our democracy. Tech companies, the giants of the digital world, have a pivotal role to play. They need to establish and enforce stringent policies against disinformation. They should invest in technologies that can detect and neutralize disinformation swiftly and accurately. They should promote transparency and integrity, allowing users to know where their information is coming from. Government bodies, too, cannot stand on the sidelines. They must enact regulations to hold tech companies accountable. They should promote media literacy and critical thinking in education. They should encourage research and innovation to combat disinformation. They should ensure that every citizen has access to reliable and accurate information, thereby upholding the democratic principle of informed consent. But remember, the fight against disinformation is ongoing. It's a battle that requires constant vigilance, constant questioning, and constant learning. It's a battle that we must fight together, because democracy, at its core, is about collective decision-making. It's about us, the people, having the power to shape our future. Remember, it's our vote, our choice. Let's ensure it stays that way. To summarize, electoral disinformation is a serious threat to the democratic process. It undermines the very fabric that holds our society together, the power of the people to choose their leaders. Our exploration of this topic has taken us through the labyrinth of social media, where information is easily manipulated and disseminated at lightning speed. We've also delved into the role of traditional media, a double-edged sword that can either inform or misinform the public. All these elements highlight the urgent need for us to be vigilant, to question the information we consume, and to seek out reliable sources. More than ever, we must remain critical of the information that shapes our political perspectives and decisions. We also have the power to counteract disinformation by promoting and sharing accurate information. The fight against disinformation is a collective one. We all have a role to play in safeguarding our democratic processes.